The letter reached me at the end of October, sealed with black wax and marked with the drawing of two small bells. Inside was a single page, written in careful hand. It asked me to come to Bellwake House before dusk and to stay only one night. There was one other sentence beneath the invitation, set apart from all the rest, as if it mattered more than my arrival, more than my name, perhaps even more than the house itself. If anyone warns you not to ring the second bell, listen to them. I reached the house by the last light of evening, after a long road through wet beech woods and fallen leaves. Bellwake stood above the trees like something half-remembered. Tall windows, a narrow tower, a roof dark with rain, and a single amber lamp burning beside the door. The woman who opened to me was thin, silver-haired, and dressed in black so plain it seemed almost ceremonial. She introduced herself only as Mrs. Vale. Her voice was soft, but not weak. "You are expected," she said. "And before anything else, there is one rule." She took my coat, closed the door against the wind, and looked at me with the tired seriousness of someone repeating an old warning for the 100th time. "You may hear the first bell at dusk," she said. "That one belongs to the house. But if you find the second bell, you must not ring it." I asked her what would happen if I did. For the first time, something unreadable passed across her face. Not fear, exactly, not grief alone. "It would answer," she said, "and that has never helped anyone." Then she turned and led me into the hall. Bellwake House had the stillness of a place that listened. The entrance hall was lined with dark wood, old portraits, and two clocks that had both stopped at the same minute. A tall stair curled upward into shadow, and somewhere above us, hidden in the walls, the wind moved like a whisper from room to room. I had been invited, Mrs. Vale told me, because the house was soon to be emptied. The last owner had died in summer, and before the estate passed into other hands, someone had to sort the letters in the library. It was quiet work, she said. I would not be disturbed. She showed me a small room overlooking the rear garden, where stone paths disappeared into mist and yew hedges. A fire had already been laid. On the writing desk stood a brass lamp, a glass of water, and a folded card with my name written on it, as if I had been expected for years. Then the first bell rang. It was not loud. It did not need to be. Its tone moved through the house with strange authority, low and golden and deliberate, like a sound meant less to summon than to settle. Below me, I heard shutters closing, then the turning of distant keys. When the final note faded, Bellwake seemed to draw inward, as if every room had taken a breath and chosen to hold it. Even the fire in my room appeared to quiet itself. I stood by the window for a long moment, looking for the tower in the dark, but saw only rain sliding across black glass. Supper was waiting in the dining room. Soup, bread, a little cheese, and a single candle at the far end of a table built for 12. Mrs. Vale did not sit with me. She only placed a key beside my plate. "For the library," she said. "Lock it behind you if you stay late." The library was warmer than the rest of the house, with shelves that climbed to the ceiling and ladders on brass rails. Letters were already stacked across a central table in neat, tied bundles. Some were personal, some legal, some so old that they had gone the color of tea. I began with the newest. Near midnight, I opened a drawer beneath the catalog desk and found a separate bundle tied not in string, but in faded blue ribbon. These letters were older than the others, and none had addresses. Every envelope bore only a date and the same 2 words in slanting ink. Not sent. The first letter was written by a woman named Adeline Vale, decades before the birth of the current housekeeper. She wrote of weather, closed rooms, and a bell in the tower. In one line, crossed through so hard the paper had nearly torn, she confessed, "The first bell closes the house. The second opens what grief keeps waiting for." I read on. Bellwake, it seemed, had once been known for its bells. The first marked dusk, storms, and winter mornings. The second had been cast later, after a death in the family no one named directly. Some called it a memorial. Others, less kindly, called it an invitation. The stories varied, but one detail remained the same. Those who rang the second bell did not disappear exactly. They stayed. They rose the next day and spoke and ate and walked the grounds. But something in them had shifted toward the past and never fully returned. A floorboard creaked behind me. I turned too quickly and found only shadow, ladder, books. Yet I no longer felt alone. The library had changed in that subtle way certain rooms do after midnight, when silence grows attentive. On the far wall, between two shelves, I noticed a narrow door I could have sworn had not been there before. The key from supper fit the lock. Beyond the door was a passage painted in a dim, faded blue, just wide enough for one person. It led upward in a slow curve, past cold stone and a row of shuttered windows. The air smelled faintly of dust, candle wax, and rain. At the top of the stair stood a small bell chamber. Moonlight reached it from a slit of glass. There was one great iron bell overhead, heavy and dark, with its rope hanging plainly in the center of the room. Beside it, under a square of linen, sat something smaller on a pedestal. I pulled back the cloth and found the second bell. It was hand-sized, cast in pale silver, almost delicate compared with the iron bell above. There was no dust on it, no tarnish, no sign of neglect. It looked less like an heirloom and more like an object patiently waiting to be used. Next to it lay one final letter, folded once. The paper trembled in my hand before I had even opened it, though the room was still. "If you are standing here," it began, "the house has already guessed what voice you would most wish to hear again. That is how it has always kept its guests." I do not know whether it was the words themselves or something in the silence after them, but in that moment, I thought of the last conversation I had never repaired. A door closed too quickly. A sentence said in pride. A voice gone from the world before I had learned how to call it back. Then, from somewhere just below the bell chamber, I heard it. My name. Spoken quietly, exactly as it had once been spoken years ago, with warmth and patience and the kind of familiarity that reaches you before thought can defend itself. I froze, with my hand hovering over the silver handle. The voice came again, not louder, only nearer. Not pleading, not frightening, simply certain that I would answer. Outside the narrow window, the rear garden no longer looked empty. Along the wet stone paths moved pale figures in twos and threes, as though guests were arriving late to a place they already knew. And suddenly I understood the cruelty of the second bell. It did not threaten, it did not drag anyone into darkness. It offered a perfect shape for longing to step into. One more conversation, one more return, one more opening of a door that ordinary life had closed forever. My fingers touched the handle. The silver was warm, impossibly warm, as though another hand had only just left it. Below me, the voice said my name a third time, and with it came the sharp, unbearable sweetness of memory. Lamplight, winter rain, a hallway, a chance not taken. I wish I could say I was brave. The truth is smaller than that. I was simply tired enough and old enough to understand that some doors do not lead back. They only lead deeper into wanting. So I covered the bell again with the linen cloth and stepped away. At once, the garden emptied. The voice was gone. The chamber became only room again. Stone, moonlight, old wood, my own breathing. When I returned to the stair, I found Mrs. Vale waiting below with a candle in her hand. She did not ask what I had heard. She only nodded once. I left Bellwake House at dawn. As I reached the gate, the first bell rang across the wet morning, low and golden, closing the night behind me. No second bell followed. None ever has. And yet, whenever evening grows quiet enough, I still know exactly why I was told never to ring it.